Good morning and welcome back to the Red Mic. Happy Monday. I'm glad you're here. These Red Mic messages are leadership and life lessons I picked up mainly from 25 years as a public servant, 16 years as a youth football coach and scouting volunteer, and 10 years as a mediocre athlete with far more heart than actual physical ability. Today's Red Mic message, the power of perspective, seeking to understand. But first, a couple of leftovers from last week. I don't think I ever mentioned the movie that I was talking about on Wednesday was Three Amigos. At least I think that's the movie I was talking about. I'd have to go back and double check, but I gave you a prompt and then never gave the answer. So sorry about that. Um, I don't know if you watched the Super Bowl or not. Um, I'm sure a lot of you did. I was sort of in and out. I'm going to talk tomorrow a little bit about the halftime show and the end zone uh, controversy. Uh, but all of that kind of leads into today's topic because the halftime show I've already seen several places. It's an argument basically. Everything's an argument these days, right? Well, the problem with a lot of these arguments is that far too often in the argument we put our ears back and we just barrel ahead. We enter these debates, and usually they're with people we know, and we enter these debates like, well, I'm right and they're wrong, and I'm going to do everything I can to win. I'm going to convince them. Well, first of all, you're not going to convince anybody. Doesn't matter if you know them. Doesn't matter if you don't know them. They're going to have their ideas. You're going to have your ideas. I mean, look at some of the hoaxes that uh, have even been debunked by outfits like by Snopes, and the people who believe them are still holding on to them. Uh, you know, a very good example is the so-called fine people hoax. I'm not going to go into it. You know what it is. Snopes debunked it completely, and yet it was used primarily in the most recent presidential election as a reason not to vote for someone. Uh, that's a case of, well, I'm right and they're wrong, and I don't care what they say. I mean, there was definable video evidence debunking the hoax, and that's what Snopes talked about. You know, there was a selective clip that used this much of the clip. Well, the part that debunked it was the next part, right? And despite the existence of that clip, people who wanted to believe this didn't care what that part said. Well, that's what he really meant. Well, okay, fine. So that's the problem. We enter a debate like it's a battle to be won. We come in and we're armed with our arguments, and we're ready to strike down with serious vengeance and great anger and use the force and all of that. And that's really contrary to a lot of the leadership ideas that I've got in my head, because you need to understand what people are thinking rather than just proving them wrong. When you start a conversation with "you're wrong," you shut the door on any chance of learning, of collaboration, of progress. Now, if it's the same old tired arguments over and over and over again, you are certainly entitled to say, okay, we've already discussed this. I don't agree with you. I don't think badly of you. I don't think any less of you, but you got your opinion, I've got my opinion. So why don't we just shake hands and move on? In the workplace, though, you really, well, first of all, you need to avoid topics that are going to, avoid topics. I mean, they always used to say, don't talk about politics and religion. I mean, It's kind of a no-brainer in the workplace, right? So, but on issues that are appropriate for the workplace, invite dialogue, general, thoughtful exchanges of ideas. And that's going to be how you move people, organizations, even nations forward to bigger, better, greater things. Division seems to be the default nowadays. Politics, social issues, sports teams, halftime shows. Everything seems like a zero sum game, right? Where someone has to win, someone has to lose. But it's not the Super Bowl. It's really not. It's just life. So stop thinking in those terms. Try to approach disagreements as an opportunity to learn rather than a fight that has to be won. When you engage in thoughtful disagreement, you're doing more than just listening. You are really trying hard to understand. Doesn't mean you have to agree. I've already said that. But you have to be willing to give someone else's perspective a fair hearing. Even if at the end of all that you completely disagree with everything they're saying, at least by understanding their perspective, it helps you understand them a little bit better. Respect the fact that every belief, every stance, every opinion is shaped by experiences that we may not share. I've been very public on this on some of my other socials. I am firmly convinced that my mother's untimely death is directly related to the quality of health care she received. And there's a whole lot that goes into that I'm not going to dive into. Other people might disagree, and I understand. But I still firmly believe that and will continue to believe that. So think about my topic, power of perspective. And think about some of the best leaders you've known, whether it's bosses, mentors, coaches, executives, whoever they are. They probably weren't the people who talked the loudest. They were probably the ones who asked the best questions. And instead of shutting down conversations with certainty, they opened them up. One of the worst bosses I ever had, you would go in to talk to the guy, and 9 times out of 10, he would put his hand up and make you stop talking and then just rattle off what he wanted to say. Used to burn me up every time, too. To my recollection, I've only done this once, and I regretted it the minute I did because immediately I had a flashback to that guy. Horrible, horrible experience of a boss. I am happy to say that one time that he did that to me, though, boy, he was wrong. And we got lambasted. It was when I was at the Residential Construction Commission. And I told him, I said, we do not need to do this article. We need to just send them a statement and say, this is all we're going to say. And he was like, nope, nope. And he had me send contact information for a couple of our board members directly to the reporter, and they just both got gutted, and the agency got gutted, and it was not pretty. And afterward, he had the gall to try to blame me for it, and thankfully, his deputy director stepped up and said, "Well, wait a minute, you're the one who told him to do that." So, anyway, it was one of those instances where I hated being right, but I was. So, back to the original point. Instead of shutting down conversations with the bold hand, try to ask questions. What led you to that belief? What makes you think that is a better answer than what I'm offering? What experiences in your background led to that perspective? Have you thought about this? And try to, present your thoughts a little gently. It's easy to dismiss somebody when you don't understand them. Wouldn't you agree? So, listen. Try not to disregard their humanity. Listen to their story. I've said this a million times and I'll say it again. As Americans, we have far more things that unite us than divide us. But if we only focus on the things that divide us, we will never move forward. If we only see each other as opponents rather than fellow citizens, we'll never make real progress. Good debates don't always have winners or losers. Sometimes a good debate clearly has a winner and a loser, but a lot of the better debates leave everybody more informed, more thoughtful, more connected. So the next time you're in disagreement, whether it's in real life or on the internet, because come on, the internet's not real life, instead of immediately jumping to you're wrong and here's why, try instead help me understand. I know I'm going to try to do that more. You might be surprised where that road leads. And that's today's Red Mike message. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you find it helpful. I hope that you will give me a like, a follow, and a share. And yes, I will talk about the Super Bowl halftime show tomorrow. I have some opinions. I know you're surprised, right? I hope you had a good weekend. I hope you will see me again tomorrow. And don't forget, life is short. Drink the bourbon.